If you ever saw one of our Christmas cards, you'd think we were the poster family for the American dream. Me in a tailored suit, my wife with her Hollywood smile, and my brother standing there like the proud uncle who totally isn't plotting to kill me for my company. I mean, sure, now it's obvious, but back then, I was as clueless as a Hallmark movie dad who doesn't realize the neighbor is in love with his wife until the third act. I had everything. A multi-million-dollar business, a lake house with a dock big enough for 2 boats, and a family that I thought would take a bullet for me. Turns out they just wanted me to take the poison for them. Here's the thing. My wife, Olivia, had that kind of beauty that made waiters forget other tables existed. But beauty isn't a crime. No, the crime was the toxic love she packaged with it. We met in college, fell in love faster than a Vegas elopement, and built a life together. She used to bring me lunch at work, but looking back, maybe she was just scouting the office to see how much she could inherit if I dropped dead. And my brother, Ethan, he was the fun sibling, the guy who'd make a joke at a funeral and somehow get away with it. We grew up sharing everything, toys, a bedroom, and, apparently, my wife. It started small. Weird little things I brushed off. Olivia would vanish for a yoga class, but come back smelling like expensive whiskey. And Ethan suddenly had new cufflinks I was pretty sure I'd seen in my own closet. I chalked it up to coincidence. After all, who suspects their family of plotting the kind of betrayal that would make a daytime soap opera writer say, "Too much, tone it down"? But then came the night of the lobster bisque. We were at this overpriced restaurant that serves portions so small you have to stop for a burger on the way home. I took one sip and felt this sharp bitterness, like the soup had been flirting with battery acid. Olivia leaned in, smiling way too much, and said, "How's it taste?" in that voice people use when they already know the answer. I laughed it off. "Weird," I said. "Maybe I'm just tired." Yeah, tired of ignoring the fact my life was starting to feel like a Lifetime movie called Cheating, Poison, and the Perfect Alibi. By week 3, I was getting dizzy in board meetings, not just too much coffee dizzy, more like you're about to meet your ancestors dizzy. I told Olivia I might need to see a doctor, and she gave me this look, like she was trying not to smile. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment the whole revenge plot started writing itself in my head. The best part? If you asked anyone back then, they'd say we were the picture of love. But under that picture-perfect surface was a ticking bomb, one they were sure I'd never see coming. They thought they were so clever, and that's where they made their first mistake. Because the thing about family is we know each other's weaknesses, and I was about to turn theirs into my weapon. I didn't go full detective at first. I went full sitcom husband who thinks he's clever because he hides a nanny cam inside the world's ugliest succulent. Step 1, act dumber than usual. Step 2, smile through the nausea. Step 3, let Olivia and Ethan write their own confessions while I collect the footage like a true crime podcast host with a ring light. The dizzy spells were getting theatrical, like fade to black between quarterly earnings and the Q&A. I started bringing my own travel mug to work, pretending it was some goofy health routine while quietly swapping cups at home, so whatever vitamin Olivia sprinkled in landed in a decoy. Surprise twist number 1. When you stop drinking your wife's special smoothies, you suddenly stop seeing dead relatives waving at you from the conference room. Meanwhile, Ethan dropped in more often, playing the worried brother role so hard he deserved an Emmy, or at least a citation for overacting. "You look pale, man," he'd say, slapping my shoulder, the way guys do when they want to feel like they did something helpful without actually being helpful. I'd nod, all fragile and noble, like a Civil War ghost, and promise to slow down, which conveniently meant stepping back from certain executive duties and letting him help with decisions that, if you were an evil duo trying to siphon control of a multi-million-dollar company, you'd absolutely want to steer. Here's where the parody went premium. I bought 3 identical kitchen canisters labeled sugar, flour, and love. We don't bake. I wired the love canister with a micro camera and a tiny RFID triggered scale that logged every time the lid lifted and exactly how much came and went. I also set a little lab in a box in the laundry room, a testing kit my doctor friend recommended after I told him I suspected a supplement interaction, which is code for my spouse might be feeding me something from the villain aisle. He told me to bring a few samples, said he'd run them quietly, and also gently mentioned couples therapy. I said sure, as long as the therapist specializes in betrayal, cheating, and attempted homicide covered in gluten-free breadcrumbs. To sell the illusion, I dialed up the melodrama. Coughing in the morning, gripping the banister with a trembling hand, Googling symptoms where the search history could be accidentally discovered, heart palpitations, heavy metal poisoning. Why does my wife smell like a speakeasy after yoga? The more pitiful I played, the bolder they got. One night, Olivia brought me chamomile tea with this concerned angel look, the kind that says, "I'm the only thing standing between you and doom," which is wonderful foreshadowing when she is the doom. I made a performative show of gratitude, then swapped cups when she turned to answer a call from Amy, who, fun fact, was saved under Ethan's number. If you're going to conduct toxic love and casual cheating, at least invest in burner phones. Amateurs. The nanny cam caught it first, a small sachet, pale as a communion wafer, sliding from Olivia's silk robe into the tea, stirred clockwise like she'd learned it from a YouTube witch. The love canister logged 1.2 grams missing. Over the next week, the numbers danced, a gram here, half a gram there, like I was counting calories but for attempted murder. I bagged every suspicious liquid, every rim-stained mug, and dropped them at my friend's clinic with the nervous laugh of a guy pretending he's not starring in the prequel to Dateline. He should have seen this coming. He called 3 days later, his voice doing the doctor thing where they try to sound calm, but you can hear the soft panic of malpractice ghosts behind them. "It's not something over the counter," he said. "It's a compound in small doses, neurological effects, fatigue, cardiac irregularities if it accumulates." I asked if it was lethal. He sighed. "In the wrong hands." Wrong hands were literally tearing baguette at my dinner table, talking about weekend getaways to Napa while trading glances sharp enough to dice shallots. Ethan started floating succession planning, which is business speak for let's practice saying when you die without making it sound like Christmas. He told me he'd be honored to keep the ship afloat if I needed real rest. My wife touched my wrist and said I'd always be the soul of the company, which was sweet, because they were actively trying to evict my soul from my body. I asked them both to take on more responsibility temporarily. Why not let the foxes lead the tour of the henhouse if you've already installed laser tripwires and linked the whole farm to your phone? Here's where the conspiracy energy starts humming. My father-in-law, who hates me the way small dogs hate mailmen, suddenly became polite. He invited me golfing. He's never invited me anywhere that didn't involve me paying for valet. On the 7th hole, he said, "Family is everything," which is what people say right before they sell you property in a swamp. Moments later, Ethan texted me a photo from our office parking lot. Olivia's car and his side by side, like prom dates, caption, "Teamwork." I wanted to reply with "bet," which in modern American translates to "keep going, I dare you." But I kept my phone silent and took another bad swing at the ball because the Academy loves method acting. I trusted 2 people more than anyone else: my lawyer, who has a moral compass that points to airtight, and our head of security, a Marine who believes cameras are a love language. We drew a map. Quiet audits. Board members looped in via health updates. A surprise provision added to the bylaws that reassigns voting power to a trustee in the event of my medical incapacitation, a trustee who, because life is occasionally poetic, happened to be me under a pseudonym. Meanwhile, I bought Olivia a new wellness journal as a gesture of trust, a gorgeous leather thing that had a thin tracker sewn behind the spine. Cute. She loved it. She carried it everywhere, like a diary of doom. The cheating affair wasn't just physical. It was administrative. Bank pings started to show small transfers, test balloons floating to offshore accounts like wish lanterns at a very illegal festival. Ethan pitched the board on strategic liquidity, which is brother speak for let's put the company on roller skates and hope he faceplants. I made a show of agreeing, of being too tired to fight the numbers, of trusting my family. Inside, the revenge fantasia was already storyboarded. Confession reels, paper trails, timestamps lining up like dominoes. I was past the pain of betrayal and into the cold part where you sharpen it into a tool. The fantasy grew extravagant. Press conferences, perp walks, a jury foreman saying guilty like a bell toll. But real life doesn't march. It drifts. You wait. You keep your breathing slow. You let toxic love believe it's winning because that's when it grows sloppy and loud. The slip came on a Tuesday that smelled like rain and deceit. Olivia left the wellness journal open on the counter as if she wanted me to see the gratitude list. 1, morning light. 2, second chances. 3, blessings. Underneath, faint indentations from the previous page read like the whisper of a ghost. Dosage? When will he says soon. My palm went cold, not because I discovered something new, but because I realized they were tired of pretending too. They were ready for the last push. Perfect. I'd already moved the schedule up. The stage was built. The players were in costume. And the next scene, the one where I collapse exactly where the microphones live, was going to be my entrance, not my exit. The trick to flipping a murder scheme is to make the murderers feel like they're so close to winning they can already taste the champagne. Or, in this case, whatever artisanal poison Olivia and Ethan were stocking in the love canister. My entire vibe shifted from poor fragile husband to tragically noble CEO who's preparing to pass the torch. I was practically auditioning for a Hallmark movie called The Man Who Died with Dignity, while his wife was definitely not sleeping with his brother. Step 1 of the revenge plan: a fake will. Not just a, oops, I wrote this down on a napkin fake, but a notarized, signed, and sealed masterpiece courtesy of my lawyer, who was practically vibrating with glee when I told him the backstory. In the will, Olivia and Ethan each got a hefty slice of my fortune, but only if my death was ruled natural. Any hint of foul play? Everything, down to my cufflinks, would be donated to a trust for abandoned cats in Wisconsin. I made sure that part was in bold. Step 2, the medical drama. I arranged a fake emergency hospitalization. Nothing says your plan is working like watching your target wheeled away under fluorescent lights. I had a friendly doctor check me in under cardiac observation and slap a heart monitor on me like a fashion accessory. For 2 days I played the part, frail, soft-spoken, gazing out the window like I was composing my final words for a memoir called Betrayal in the Suburbs. Olivia visited with flowers and fake tears, and Ethan stopped by with a "hang in there, bro" that sounded a lot like "don't die before the paperwork clears. Step 3, bleed information." I told them both, separately, that I was updating company succession documents just in case. I made sure Ethan accidentally overheard my lawyer say, "Once the transition is complete, you'll be in charge." I made sure Olivia caught a glimpse of a folder labeled Final Asset Transfers in my bag. You could see the greed physically expanding inside them like a balloon at a kid's birthday party. Here's the toxic love kicker. They started getting sloppy. Olivia used my wellness journal tracker to meet Ethan at a mid-tier motel 3 towns over, thinking I'd be too weak to notice she was running errands. The tracker pinged every move. Meanwhile, Ethan began withdrawing cash in just under reportable amounts, like the IRS doesn't have calculators. They were cheating on the plan as much as they were cheating on me. I didn't even have to plant half the evidence. They gift-wrapped it. Step 4. The board meeting trap. I called an urgent executive session, telling the board we'd be finalizing the leadership transition. I booked it in the largest conference room, equipped with a hidden projector linked to my security guy's hard drive. Chairs were arranged just so, Olivia to my left, Ethan across from her, and every shareholder who had ever doubted my paranoia filling the rest of the seats. I made sure there was catered coffee and pastries from a bakery I personally vetted for poison-free status, because irony only works if you're still alive to enjoy it. Step 5. Bait the confession. I asked them both to present their vision for the company's future, because if there's one thing narcissists can't resist, it's a microphone. Ethan went first, talking about bold new leadership and fresh perspectives, while Olivia nodded like the First Lady of corporate America. Then Olivia gave her speech all about preserving my husband's legacy with the kind of sincerity you usually see in bad courtroom dramas. And then the curtain dropped. The lights dimmed. The projector clicked on. First came the nanny cam footage. Olivia sprinkling powder into my tea. Ethan counting envelopes of cash, the two of them kissing in my kitchen like they'd forgotten the security camera was right above the fridge. Gasps. Actual gasps from the board. One guy choked on his croissant. Next, the audio. My brother's voice, crystal clear, saying, "When he's gone, we'll split everything," followed by Olivia's, "Soon, the dosage is working." A time-stamped sequence rolled on, lab test results, transaction logs, even screenshots of motel check-ins. The grand finale, a clip from 2 nights prior. Olivia and Ethan in my driveway, arguing over whether to speed it up because they were tired of waiting. Step 6. Law enforcement's encore. Right on cue, the conference room doors opened, and in walked 2 detectives with arrest warrants. Ethan went pale, Olivia went red, and the board went dead silent except for the sound of chairs scraping back. What they didn't know, and what made this betrayal into a chef's kiss masterpiece, was that the company wasn't even theirs to steal anymore. Step 7 of the plan was the hidden ace. Weeks earlier, I'd quietly transferred ownership into an irrevocable trust with me as lifetime trustee. Even if they somehow talked their way out of prison, good luck with that, they'd still walk out to find themselves bankrupt, disgraced, and blacklisted from every decent country club in the tri-state area. In that moment, watching them led away in handcuffs, I didn't feel like the victim of toxic love. I felt like the host of the most savage family reunion America had ever seen. One where the party favors were felony charges and the cake was my unpoisoned victory. You ever see those courtroom sketches where the defendant's eyes look like they're screaming, "This wasn't supposed to happen"? That was Olivia and Ethan in real life, except they didn't even get the dignity of a courtroom yet. They were still in my boardroom, wrists cuffed, surrounded by people who used to toast champagne with them. I swear I saw one of the shareholders pull out his phone to snap a pic, because in America, the fall of a toxic love power couple is better than cable news. The detectives read them their rights, and Olivia shot me a look. That mix of fury and disbelief, like I'd just violated some unspoken cheating code by not letting her get away with attempted murder. Ethan tried to grin, but it came out like a constipated grimace. I leaned back in my chair, not even trying to hide the satisfaction. Revenge isn't always a dish best served cold. Sometimes it's best served in a climate-controlled conference room with catered pastries. But here's where the betrayal got poetic. As the cops led them out, I stopped them. "One more thing," I said, like Columbo, if Columbo ran a Fortune 500 company. I pulled a slim folder from my briefcase and slid it across the table toward them. "That," I told them, is the deed transfer for the company, which, as of last month, is owned entirely by the Harold E. Grant Foundation for Abandoned Cats. Yes, Harold E. Grant was my childhood cat. Yes, he got a foundation. Don't judge me. Baron, the room went silent for a beat, then the head of HR actually clapped. Olivia blinked. You gave it away?" she stammered. Ethan's jaw clenched so hard I thought his molars might file for divorce. "Technically," I said, "I still control it as trustee. But you? You couldn't touch it if you lived for 1,000 years, which, for the record, you won't, given your taste in dietary additives." The irony was delicious. Their entire family betrayal had been about stealing something they could never have. Every late-night whisper, every motel rendezvous, every teaspoon of poison, all for nothing. And now, instead of yacht brochures, they'd be reading prison menus. The cops finally walked them out, and as the door shut, the board erupted into the kind of applause people usually save for the end of a Broadway show. I stood, straightened my tie, and addressed them like nothing unusual had happened. "Meeting adjourned. Oh, and please remember to RSVP for the Foundation Gala. We'll be serving lobster bisque, poison-free." In the weeks that followed, the fallout was everything I'd dreamed. Local news ran the story under headlines like "CEO Outsmarts Murder Plot by Wife and Brother" and "Family Business Turns Felony Circus." A true crime podcast called "Blood is Thicker Than Lawsuits" dedicated a 3-part series to it. My lawyer told me he'd never seen such airtight evidence in a domestic conspiracy case. The DA grinned like it was Christmas morning. Olivia tried to play the devoted wife framed by her paranoid husband card. Ethan went with misunderstood businessman. Neither stuck. The footage was too clear, the lab results too damning, and honestly, America loves a clean villain arc. The jury barely left the room before returning guilty verdicts on multiple counts. Sentencing day felt like the season finale of a prestige drama. I didn't even have to speak. I just sat there in the gallery, calm as a monk, while the judge handed them a future in matching jumpsuits. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Not them, not the press, not even my lawyer. I didn't sell the company. I didn't retire. I expanded. Turns out a brush with betrayal and cheating sharpens your instincts in business. We doubled our profits in 18 months. The foundation became a PR darling. My face was on magazines, but not for scandal. For resilience and leadership under fire. If that's not the ultimate revenge, I don't know what is. Sometimes people ask me if I miss them. If I miss the family dinners, the laughter, the illusion of loyalty. And I tell them the truth. I miss the man I thought I was back then, the one too trusting to see the knives at his back. But I'm glad he's gone. The man I am now, he knows better. He knows that when you spot toxic love, you don't just walk away. You burn the bridge, salt the earth, and build something better on the ashes. The last time I saw Olivia and Ethan, they were in separate prison transport vans, pulling out of the courthouse. She wouldn't look at me. He did, one long, hateful stare. I just smiled, gave a little wave, and mouthed, "Thank you." Because without them, I might still be asleep in that perfect life, blind to the truth. And now I sleep fine, alone, rich, alive, and in complete control of my company and my story.